while the temperate regions are subjected to frequent glaciation. Due to which most of the species are killed. They have a short growing period. As the climate here, the climate in this region is harsh to very harsh, which is unfavorable for growth. The second hypothesis is tropical environment. Now, the tropical environment is less seasonal, means the climate remains the same throughout the year. That is, it is more constant, predictable. We know how the type of climate will be throughout the year. These things are not seen in case of the temperate climate. Now, these conditions promote niche specialization, that is, niche specialization means the species become better adapted to specific characteristics of the habitat by natural selection. This leads to greater species diversity. And the third hypothesis is presence of more solar energy in the tropical region or in the tropics. More solar energy means higher productivity. Higher productivity, which may indirectly lead to a greater diversity. Now, this is seen in a wide variety of taxonomic groups like ants, birds, butterfly, moth, etc. The same can be seen in case of altitude. Now, as we move from the lower altitude to the higher altitude, species diversity decreases. As it has been seen that for every 1,000-meter increase in altitude, there is a decrease in temperature by about 6 degrees Celsius. Now, decrease in temperature and a greater seasonal variability or a greater seasonal variations at the higher altitudes are the major factor for decrease in species diversity at the higher altitudes. Now, the next pattern of biodiversity is species area relationship. It is the relationship between species richness and area. Species richness is the number of species found within an area of a habitat. The larger the area means more the number of species. you can say that species richness is directly proportional to area. Alexander von Humboldt, a German naturalist and geographer, while exploring a South American jungle, observed that within a region, species richness increases as the explored area increases. But up to a certain limit, after which there is no increase in species richness. Means species richness increases as the explored area increases, but up till a certain limit, because after this other factors come into consideration like climate, food, etc. Now the relation between species richness and area for a wide variety of taxa like angiosperms, birds, bats, freshwater fishes is a rectangular hyperbola. Now in this graph, at the x-axis is the area and at the y-axis is species richness. Species richness represented by S and area by A. Now as the area is increased, the species richness also increases, but after a certain limit, it becomes stable. That means no further species richness or diversity can be seen. This is represented by the formula S is equal to C A to the power Z. S is species richness, C is a constant, or also known as the y-intercept. A is the area and Z represents the slope. Now the y-intercept depends on the unit used for the measurement of area. While the Z, the slope, is the regression coefficient, or you can say it is the slope of species area relationship. On a logarithmic scale, the equation S equal to C A to the power Z can be represented as log S, that is species richness, is equal to log C, that is the constant, plus Z log A, that is the area. Now this is always a straight line. We can tally it with the equation of the straight line, that is y is equal to c plus mx. Y, that is y-axis, which represents the species richness, that is log s. C is the constant, or you can say the y-intercept. M is z, that is the slope, and x is the x-axis that represents the area, that is log A. Now for a larger area, the slope, that is Z, becomes larger or more steeper. The graph will become more steep. The steeper graph shows means more area and more species richness. So when steepness changes, means the species richness changes. Now this helps us to predict the number of species in a particular area. This equation or the species area relationship helps us to predict the number of species in a particular area. Now the value of Z, that is the slope of regression, irrespective of the taxonomic group or the region, under normal conditions is always 0.1 to 0.2. Means it can be plants in Britain, birds in California, or mollusks in New York. They will all have the same value for Z, that is 0.1 to 0.2. In a very large area, like say in a continent, the value of Z becomes more, that is it will become 0.6 to 1.2. For example, in case of frugivorous birds, means birds that eat fruits, and mammals found in...
Z is basically nothing. Z is the slope of this line. ठीक है, Z is line का slope है, and that much of detail is not required, right? That is a part of the concern of gate ecology evolution. But just for the same purpose, I am teaching here. Z is the slope of that line.
In the tropical forest of different continents, Z equals to 1.5. That's all for today. Please do like, subscribe, and comment, and also visit our website by clicking on the link given.
So I guess now everyone is much more clear about the things which we and we have talked about here. Now the next is threat to biodiversity, right? What are the threats? Just a second, I will share this in the group also. These are all just like the experience which teaches like what are the things which must be targeted, right? So you need not to study too much. You need to study in a given domain from where the question comes, because our agenda is just the exam. Okay, now let's see about the threats to biodiversity. Like what all are the threats to biodiversity? Like why we are losing our biodiversity? So threats to biodiversity. Okay, so this is quite important, and sometime question come. So now, till now in the past, we have experienced 5 mass extinction, like 5 times the major extinction. And the last of which was about 65 million years ago. It was Jurassic, when the dinosaur get extinct. So this was Jurassic period, when the dinosaur get extinct 65 million years ago. And the time due to the anthropogenic activity, and this time we are facing the threat, right? Anthropogenic activity, right? So anthropogenic activity, the human-made activity are responsible. That's why this era is also called as Anthropocene. and this term Anthropocene was given by Paul Crutzen. So this time, due to Anthropocene activity, we are approaching very fast towards the sixth mass extinction. So if somebody asks you, we are very fast approaching towards the sixth mass extinction, right? And there are different reasons for the loss of biodiversity, which we'll talk about that what are the different reasons that why we are losing the biodiversity, right? That should be taken care, because otherwise the biodiversity which are responsible for the balance of the ecosystem will ultimately collapse. So we will be talking about the biodiversity, or like what are the reasons for the loss of biodiversity. So now let's talk about the reasons. Hope this much is clear to all, right? That should be taken care, because otherwise okay. So now let's take what are the reasons for the loss of biodiversity. So that
see, sixth mass extinction, what I mean to say from this, that till now, up to till now, we have observed 5 major mass extinction, where we have observed that the most of the species got extinct. But now this is a time for the sixth mass extinction, and it is said, because of the ongoing research, that we are very fast approaching toward the sixth mass extinction. Sanju Kumari ko clear hai? Chalo.
I will be talking about the reasons for the loss of biodiversity. Okay, so the first reason is habitat loss. This is very important. The order also you have to remember. The first and the foremost reason is habitat loss and fragmentation. Quite obvious, if somebody will lose his home and the pathway or the habitat get fragmented, means it is divided into parts, then no one will like to live there. And ultimately, the species will lose its habitat and home,